Great. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Career Options in IT and Maths. My name is Rana. I manage the industry engagement team focused on employability at La Trobe University, and I'm really pleased to be able to welcome our panelists, who I will introduce in just a second. I do want to start with an acknowledgement of country. La Trobe University acknowledges that this event and our participants are located on the lands of many traditional custodians in Australia. We recognize their ongoing connection to the land and value their unique contribution to the university and wider Australian society. We pay our respects to Indigenous elders past, present, and emerging, and extend this respect to any Indigenous participants joining us online today. A very warm welcome from all of us. All right, a few housekeeping points before we kick off. I can see all our participants, your mics are on mute. Thanks for doing that. If you do have your videos on, it's always good to be able to see faces, even though we're looking at computer screens and widgets. Remember, students, I always want to sort of reiterate this point. This is your session. Between the panelists and myself, we have a list of prepared questions, but I really encourage you to ask questions and clarify your questions from our panelists. They're here today to tell us about themselves, their career journey, touch on their programs as well, and whatever opportunities they have in their organization. We are limited in our time, so we'll try and get through as much as we possibly can. When asking questions, please use the chat function. We'll try and get to it as quickly as possible. I'll try and always correlate your question with any questions that we have prepared and try and make sure that the themes align and we get to your question on time. If you're comfortable enough, feel free to raise your virtual hand, give us a wave, and then we'll come to you and you can ask us a question. I think that's the most preferred way, but if you're comfortable with just putting it in the chat function, we can do that as well. A really quick formality, I'm going to paste the attendance form in the chat now. If you'll just give it 8 seconds, it'll literally take you 3 clicks and 10 seconds. Your attendance will be marked for the Career Ready Advantage Award. The link for Career Ready Advantage Award is also in the chat function now. All right, fantastic. I am going to go through the names of our panelists. Panelists, if you could give us a quick wave when I do that, and then we'll go on to a bit more detailed introduction for yourselves. In no particular order, Sailen, Kotecha, Senior Manager, Strategic Initiatives from Oracle. Thank you, Sailen, for joining us. Sophie Zdenkowski, University Partnerships Manager for Australia from FDM Group. Simon Delord, Senior Specialist Solution Architect from Red Hat. Sarah Coonan, Recruitment and Advocacy Manager for Teach for Australia. Steve Emanouel, Chief Experience Officer, IVE Group. I don't know if you've noticed, but all our panelists' first names start with an S. So this will be a successful panel. What a bad joke, sorry. All right, we'll start with you, Sailen, if that's okay. If you could please start off with telling us a little bit about your organization, your role. It'd be great if you could share some of your sort of daily tasks as well, so we get an idea of what work really means for you.
Okay, welcome guys and girls. I work for Oracle Corporation, so we're a multinational organization based in Delord, Texas. 300 offices worldwide, 76 countries, 132,000 employees, so we're pretty huge. Some of you may have heard of us. We started off with databases, and some of us you've probably come across with Java because we own Java. But more recently, obviously, cloud is a huge thing for us. We're also in software and hardware. And we've got things like we host Zoom, so you're actually using Oracle technology now, actually talking to us. And if you play with TikTok, then TikTok is based on our technologies as well. So you may or may not have heard of us. I'm part of the cloud engineering group. So cloud engineering's job literally is to provide ways of customers to adopt the cloud and provide them with the education guidance and tools to sort of enable them to smoothly transition. Now, cloud adoption, you may hear many sort of stories out there in the market, but it's about de-risking your organization by moving unnecessary risk over from your data centers or your applications onto the cloud and make it our problem, really. And that's what this is all about. A day in the life for me really is I have 3 main focuses. my first focus is delivery. So I manage a team that's spread right across Australia, New Zealand, India, Hong Kong, Japan, and we help customers to adopt the cloud, and we provide sort of means and tools, as I said, but we also provide the manpower to help them do that. My job is to make sure that we manage escalations, we manage any roadblocks that are happening, and we manage expectations. So all of this is about now people dealing with people. So my job at a delivery level is making sure people are getting what they're expecting, and my teams are delivering what the customer's expecting. But I'm also an SME. So one of the good things about Oracle and a lot of the tech companies, Google, Oracle, etc., is that they're likely to get involved at a lower level. So I'm also an SME, which is a subject matter expert. So my life started off as a data architect, basically. So I'm also involved in projects as a data architect on a number of projects. And I'm also a principal architect. So I help customers architect their cloud environments. So, you know, as I said, the job is not boring and pen pushing. It's also, there's a lot of technical and hands-on if that's what you want to do, and the flexibility there. The other side of my role is strategic. So my job is to do events like this where we deal with customers, partners, and hopefully, as I said, new employees that want to join us so that we can encourage you to come and join our journey with us. I think that at the end of the day, we run events like hackathons and things like this. At the moment, they're all internal, but I'm pushing to have external hackathons so that we can get students like yourself involved in this. I mean, in our last hackathon, our finalist did a product called Good Samaritan, where it allowed emergency services to actually interact with each other in California in a very during the fires. So even though it started off as an exercise and a hackathon, it actually became a real world application. And I think this is the kind of thing that my team tries to adopt. And the third area is research, so that we all are allowed to do our own internal research, and I'm researching in data modeling. And so my day-to-day job is delivery, strategy, and research.
Fantastic. A really good overview of what you're really involved in from a day-to-day basis. I didn't know Zoom was actually powered by Oracle, so that's a good thing for me to learn as well. Thanks, Sailen. Sophie, can you give us an idea about the organization and your role, please? Thank you.
Thanks, Rana. Hi, my name's Sophie. I work for FDM Group, and I am the University Partnerships Manager at FDM. So FDM is a company that has been around for about 30 years in the UK, but more recently in Australia, and we run a business model which might not be familiar to many of you. So it's important to understand what we do in order to figure out what sort of opportunities we have. So there is a global tech skills shortage. There are not enough people who are studying tech degrees or math degrees for that matter. And so these people are in high demand. So what FDM has done is we've stepped into that skills gap, and we accept applications from any graduate. Doesn't matter what discipline you come from. If you have an IT or math background, fantastic, that's really exciting. But what we look for is attitude and aptitude, so that we can train you up in the tech skills that big name companies need. And we put you through an intensive training program and then deploy you out as a technical consultant on behalf of FDM. So what we do is we recruit high potential talent, we train them currently all delivered via Zoom, and then we deploy them out to big name clients. So we service clients, 80% of them are in the finance and banking sector. However, we do have clients coming up with like major retail chains, large charities, government contracts. So we try to have a diverse portfolio of different clients that our graduates can go out to. But essentially, yeah, we upskill people and launch their careers in tech. My background is actually not in tech. I have a educational background in communications, PR, and careers education, and I'm currently studying psychology. I'm a people connector, but I've spent the majority of my career working in universities in roles similar to Rana in helping students connect with employers. And I've spent a lot of my career connecting students to technology companies, because there's been a tech skills gap now for as long as I've been working. So we do need more people to consider careers in technology, and that's kind of where FDM steps in.
Thank you, Sophie. And I think it's good for us to have you in the mix as well, along with sort of the technical background, so that students also have an insight into what career journeys or career pathways there might be out there. So thanks for highlighting that, 80% of your students or your graduates are in finance, banking, and the rest in retail and other areas. So that's good to know. Simon, could you please give us a little bit about Red Hat and yourself, please? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Rana. So my name is Simon, whichever way you want to pronounce it. So I work for Red Hat. Red Hat is effectively a software company. So we look after the open source ecosystem. So where a set of individual contributors contribute to source code if you want, and then we package it and release it as our products effectively. And we're part of the Linux world. So we look after Linux, cloud, containers, and Kubernetes technologies, right? So this company has been there for about 30 years now, 1993. And hopefully, I don't know, some of you are familiar with Linux, but that's pretty much the type of software we look after. Personally, I work on what's called the pre-sales side of things. So I help my commercial people to sell to customers, and I look after the technology of our product, right? From a day-to-day basis. That means I talk to customers, I do presentations, I answer to bids, I do demonstrations or proof of concept. So typically proof of concepts is where you do a fair bit of hands-on work with the customer to try and address some of the requirements, some of the challenges they have, and through our technology try to remediate those challenges. So from a day-to-day basis, that's pretty much the sort of work I do. From a background, I've studied, not in Australia, but in overseas back in France, maths and IT essentially as my main degree. It was essentially telecommunication, but then through a journey, you can end up working for whatever company you want with the right tool set, basically.
And we will explore your journey in just a bit, because I am quite interested in sort of the mobility aspect of your journey as well, Simon. Thank you. Sarah, could you tell us a little bit about Teach for Australia and your role, please? Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah, and I'm one of our recruitment and advocacy managers for Teach for Australia, and I look after a large portion of our Victorian portfolio. Teach for Australia, we're a not-for-profit organisation, and our aim is to tackle education inequity in specific low socioeconomic communities. So we're working predominantly with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities, refugee asylum seekers, and those from low-income backgrounds. And to tackle this, we have a 2-year leadership development program. So over 2 years, all of our associates partner with one of our schools. You work there, you earn a salary, and you complete your Masters of Teaching. The leadership development program has been around for 11 years. So we're currently recruiting our 11th cohort at the moment. And my role as one of the recruitment managers, so day to day for me is very, very different. I look after candidates through the entire process. So my job is to, first of all, recruit them. I then go through and help with the selection. So I assess at all of our applications and interviews and selection days. And then I also go through to help find a placement for our candidates in schools and support them up until day 1 in the classroom. In terms of my background, like Sophie, my background actually wasn't in education. So my background is in hotels. I come from a really strong hospitality piece of experience. I spent all of my 20s climbing the corporate ladder in hotels before moving to London. And it was when I was in London, I had the opportunity to work for Teach First, which is our UK organisation of the Teach for All umbrella. And since returning home, I'm back with the Victoria-based organisation. For us, for Australia and for Teach for Australia in particular, maths teachers are in the biggest demand around the country. 70% of maths teachers in Australia are not maths qualified, which does not mean they are bad teachers. It simply means that there is just not enough maths people out there. So we are always looking for maths candidates. You are in a lot of demand, and it's really hard to, I guess, decide where you'd like to go. But we always say to graduates as well, coming to Teach for Australia is not something, it may not be something that you want to do straight out of university. You might want to go and use your degree and then come back. So we are, I guess, an alternative career pathway out of your degree, but definitely a career pathway that is really, really needed.
Yeah, I'm hearing that there's a lot of demand for the qualifications right now, which is really good news for our students, I think. We do have questions in the chat. We will get to your questions in just a bit after Steve's introduction. Thanks, Mel, for your questions. Steve, thank you for joining us, and great to have you on board.
No worries. Good afternoon, everybody. And I'll keep mine fairly brief. My name's Steve Emanuel. I'm the Chief Experience Officer at IVE. IVE is a holistic marketing organisation that provides a whole raft of clients with a full end-to-end communications service. I work in a particular division within IVE called the Data-Driven Communications Division. And as its name suggests, we work predominantly with our clients' data to then connect whatever communication programs that they have to their particular customer base, whether that be in an offline sense via, say, direct mail, or more of an online sense via email and so on. So we build marketing automation platforms for our clients to enable them to communicate to their audience en masse in an automated way. My quick background is I'm a marketer. I actually did an economics degree at La Trobe University when my hair was black and not grey. I really enjoyed my time. That was awesome. I hope you guys are enjoying it as well. And I've always had a passion for marketing, and I've seen my career evolve in the marketing space from, early on being involved in a lot of the creative elements of marketing through to moving into the strategic phase, and now I'm very heavily involved in the data and technology phase as platforms have continued to evolve and empowered marketers to communicate with their audience in a more personalised fashion. Organisations like us have evolved and provided our clients with a whole depth and breadth of services to support that. So my journey was slightly different, economics degree through to technologist. So hopefully some of you might have similar passions. Back over to you, Rana.
Well, I shouldn't just say thank you for joining us. I should actually say welcome back as well then, Steve. All right, we might jump into this question from Mel. And Sophie, if it's okay with you, can I direct this particular question to you as a start? And then panelists, if you would like to add to what Sophie has to say, that'd be great. Mel's question is around internships within the industry. How do we get internships within these industries? If we are in a different discipline, but are interested in working in tech, how do we break into these industries? Mel, feel free to unmute yourself and add to your question, give us a bit of context around what you're studying right now, possibly, and what your plan is. There's another additional point there. If we want to build on our maths or programming skills, what's the best way to do it? I know there are websites like Khan Academy or Code Academy. What other tools or websites would you recommend?
Okay, thank you. Big question. Internships are critical, and I know from my extensive work with universities, I know every degree benefits from going out and getting some work experience prior to graduation. Is that easy? No. And is it easy for every single student to get the best experience? No. So some students find it easier to get internships than others. There are a lot that struggle. And so, my heart goes out to the people that are struggling, but it is about persistence. It is about casting the net wide. And if you aren't getting into major programs, so a lot of the major organizations will have internship programs that run for summers. But if you are having trouble securing a spot in with those major organizations, I strongly recommend you to consider small to medium enterprises. And I strongly recommend you to look into your local networks and find work experiences where there's smaller companies, maybe less structured programs, because all experience is going to teach you something. So those massive internship programs organized by big companies are great. They've lots of resources poured into them, but I know that students can get some incredible experience by working for small to medium enterprises, and they often need people helping them, and they often then provide 1 or 2 days a week work ongoing. I can see Mel's flipped on the camera there. When it comes to upskilling, programming skills, how do you sharpen yourself? This is something that you can do by yourself. There are so many free online resources. And I just want to stress at the beginning, do not pay for any additional training. There is so much free stuff out there. And unfortunately, there are sharks in the market who recognize that people need to upgrade their IT skills because they're in high demand and it makes them more employable, correct? But you do not need to pay. Paying for a program won't put you in a better stead than if you teach yourself. There are lots of organizations who respect, one of my favorite stories is I once interviewed a candidate who taught himself Java over 9 hours of YouTube videos over a weekend. That story alone got him the job. It showed initiative. It showed enjoying a challenge, enjoying problem solving. It showed determination, resilience, adaptability, all of the things, and it demonstrated aptitude to learn. So showing a bit of confidence, showing a bit of self-initiative, and going out and searching for opportunities for yourself, I recommend. But Mel, did you want to add anything to your question?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that I'm doing a Bachelor of Arts. Just kind of, I was going to kind of study in my own time. That's kind of why I mentioned Khan Academy and Code Academy, because yeah, they're free stuff. And I know kind of, I was kind of going to avoid doing paid stuff and kind of work out where my skill sets kind of lie in kind of like what areas of kind of tech that I would prefer to work in, and kind of, I guess, figure out what area works for me best, as well as where my interest lies, as well as there's like a really great resource in LinkedIn Learning. So you can kind of do like a lot of kind of video, there's lots of video resources where they help. There's just a lot of resources available for students that kind of want to branch out and figure out what direction they want to go with their career and stuff. Like I want to build on my critical thinking skills, but I also, when I think about my career, I see there's lots of opportunity in tech, but that's something I haven't really kind of explored when it comes to my career. But I don't know, there's so much stuff that I kind of wanted to explore. That's why I'm going to a lot of these different career option events. So it's kind of like, I'm just like, this is my first year, so I'm kind of just super excited. I'm trying to figure everything out, and like first year students, and trying to, yeah, I'm just super excited to be here and really hoping to kind of pick your brains. And I might ask heaps of questions, but yeah, I'm just, yeah.
Please.
Well done, Mel. I hope everybody is listening to Mel, because riding that excitement, riding the curiosity is perfect, and is exactly what employers want to hear. And you need to sort of read and watch and absorb as much information and try new things, and whatever you find yourself enjoying, motivates you, energizes you, and that you're good at, you need to lean into. So yeah, lots of free online resources. If you can get a job where they pay you, that's good. I didn't mean don't get paid work. I meant you don't pay to be trained. So I just want to make that super clear. Don't pay for training, but if you can get work where you get paid, yes, perfect. I strongly encourage.
And I also think the fact that you're a first-year student joining us is a great start, Mel. So well done. For all the students that are not aware or yet to learn about this, LinkedIn Learning is a free offering for all La Trobe students. So we have a partnership with LinkedIn where you can access all content within LinkedIn Learning for free. So do take advantage of that. I know there's another comment over there by Patrick, I think, around how awesome LinkedIn Learning is. So thanks for contributing that. Just a quick comment over there from Sailen as well for you, Mel. Sailen has mentioned that hackathons could also be a good place for you to sort of explore the area of interest as well. So you might want to explore that.
So Rana, just to add to that, as I said, it's a good way of getting noticed. And a lot of the hackathons are run by tech companies. So you've got the Googles of the world, the Facebooks of the world, and they're watching, basically. If you look...
Sailen, you just gone mute.
Sorry, I'm just putting just a quick link on the chat. And there's hundreds of hackathons going on worldwide. And it allows you to, they're free, you're not committed. And as a first year student, it's a great way of getting to know what's going on in tech, because a lot of tech companies are putting hackathons out to get your brain involved. And as I said, I've got white hair, so I'm crusty and old. We need to get fresh blood into thinking, and I think these things are fantastic. So try and get involved in that, basically, and you'll get yourself known, and you'll get to an idea of what's happening in the industry, and it's a good way of learning tech.
Thanks, Sailen. While you're on, can I direct this particular question to you, Sailen? This is a question from Suketu, who's asking, is age a concern for someone coming from different industries into software development? You are a subject matter expert, so I just thought I'd direct that to you.
Yeah, so the two sides to this. From my point of view, mental aptitude has nothing to do with age. So, you know, if you've got an aptitude for something, you've got an aptitude for something. There's the serious reality of age discrimination, which is a separate subject. And I'm in my 50s here, and so there's two things. Getting involved in the industry at any age, I didn't get involved in some of the stuff that I'm involved in until my 50s, and I actually got headhunted at 53. So it's not a age is not a limiting factor. It's the capabilities, and I think in the tech industry things have started to change as opposed to other industries. You know, where I think people look at capability now rather than necessarily age. So age is not an issue. I think you start any time. You know, we see people getting their degrees at 70, 80. You know, so it's about attitude. It's about aptitude. So, you know, and you just go for it, really. But I think just to add to Mel again, with regards to internships and things like this, do not give up. Just keep on. Just be a pain in people's sides, and you will get an internship basically. But you know, it's how much you want it more than anything else.
Great, thank you. We do have a few questions over here, but I am going to one of our prepared questions because I want to bring Simon Delord in for this particular question, and we will address some of the questions over here. Simon, you've had a very interesting career roadmap so far with studying and working overseas. How much of an impact has your sort of positive attitude towards mobility contributed to your career success or the opportunities that came to you?
Yeah, okay. So I think the IT industry is very open to change. So it's not uncommon in industry for people to change regularly jobs. So depends, it's up to you what you want to do. Some people settle for a company and then stay there forever. Some people change a lot. You can also do what's called contracting work, where you don't have a full-time employment for an indefinite period of time, but you agree on short-term, 3 months, 6 months contracting and do lots of customers. So there's various options. For myself, I started my work life in France, and then, you know, through my background and my experience, then I managed to find a job in Australia. From Australia, then moved to China for a few years, and then came back in Australia and changing companies. And it was pretty based on opportunity for career growth every time. So more around the roles that I wanted to do, more than the financial side of things, but typically they come hand in hand. So you start your career at some level, and then eventually you have more experience, you get paid more for it, get headhunted for that. That's what I followed. So effectively, if you have the possibility as an individual or as a family, as people get families, you know, partners and kids typically, if you have the possibility to do that, I would, you know, encourage you to do it. It's good to go and work in different places, experience different cultures as well, different ways of working, but not everyone has to do that. It's pretty much, I think the IT industry is flexible enough for you to do whatever type of work you want. If you want to focus on technical work or management work, stay in one place, one company, or move around, it's pretty much open. Everything is, I haven't found anything that's not acceptable in this industry. We have it's a wide, you know, variety of people. And just for Mel as well, I found some of the best people I've ever worked with in the industry didn't have at all science or engineering background, right? Those people came in on the IT just because there was job in there. And if you can learn, basically, you know, the world's your oyster. There's nothing stopping you from having zero scientific background and learning all the IT skills you need on the side. For maths, it's different. If it's like scientific math stuff, like it's a bit more hardcore if you have no math background, but from an IT perspective, you can learn the tech basically.
Great, that's really good. And I think one of the reasons why I wanted to pose that question to you, Simon, is also so that students consider the advantages of mobility. Obviously, right now we're in a situation where that might be very, very limited. But you know, if you work online, then there are a lot of opportunities out there as well. So thanks for sharing that.
And even as part of Australia, like it's very different from France. But for example, in the Australian IT community, you work with so many different backgrounds as well. So it's good as well. How many very, very different, like we're all Australians, we all have, you know, different backgrounds from culture perspective. It's very, I couldn't have that back home if you want. This is something that's unique to Australia, which I find is very, it's really nice to thrive in this type of environment. We take the best of everyone, different ways of working, different ways of talking, communicating. I think it's a great learning experience in that regard.
Fantastic, Simon. Steve, I want to ask you a question and then bring Sarah in as well. Can you please highlight some of the technical skills that a student from your IT or computer science or maths related disciplines could bring to your organization?
Yeah, thanks, Rana. It's a good question. Fundamentally, a lot of our IT staff have come from very different backgrounds. Some are maths graduates, some are IT, but most of them, I think Sailen said it a minute ago. Most of them just have this propensity and willingness to learn, and they work their way through all of the various tools to enable them to get a good grounding as to what the tech is doing and what the tech needs to do for our clients. And so fundamentally, at its essence, it's problem solving, and that ability to bring a problem solving mindset to any particular challenge that our client raises with us. Because ultimately, part of what we do is connect our clients with a technical solution to whatever specific communications challenge that they face. And so those sorts of technical skills are really important, and I'd probably go as far as to say they're consistent across any type of tech role across the industry in any form, if you know what I mean. So that ability to come with a problem-solving mindset, that ability to apply that problem-solving mindset and really deep dive into the training materials and tools that are available to ultimately bring those two worlds together. Because one of the things that we talk to our staff about and to our clients is we ultimately want the technology to work for our clients, not our clients work for the technology. And that's the fun part. It's about how do you get a particular software program to do what the client wants it to do, not make the client a slave to the technology. And I think that's the real nuance and essence in the problem solving that we try to bring to our clients. And that's what we really look for in our prospective graduates that we recruit on an annual basis. We're looking for somebody who has that right aptitude and ability to really embrace problem solving. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I am getting a lot of theme from Sophie, Sarah, and all our other panelists as well, that, it is about the personality, the attitude. The tech skills are a given once you graduate from a particular technical qualification, but it's about the attitude. It's about the soft skills, the interpersonal skills. So students, be mindful of that, please. Look at the Career Advantage Award. I have to promote that as much as possible because it is what the industry is also highlighting. Sarah, can I please bring you in? If you could give us a bit of sort of a highlight into some of the advantages or beneficial aspects of our students should think of when considering Teach for Australia programs, so that they have a better idea.
Yeah, of course. I'll go into some examples of where some of our alumni at the moment, but I think the biggest thing is the reward that comes from providing stability and opportunity to our students. And if I think about, if you all think about where you were in high school and where you grew up, students who are living in rural and remote communities, if they have the opportunity to do some work experience and they're living in one of those communities, they might just have the local hardware store to go and get some experience, compared to those that are growing up in major cities and have access to PwC and Delord and Google and all these other organizations that those in those communities just will never have the access to. And I think sending our teachers out to those communities where the turnover rate of teachers is so high, because it's really challenging and it's really tough out there and they don't stay. So that stability that we can provide for our students, and then also the opportunities that come to them by having someone who believes in them. And that opportunity can be just going to university. I grew up in a really rural area of Queensland, but my parents put me through private school, and I went to university because I was given the opportunity at school. So I think the opportunity we're providing is the reward. But we have alumni after they finish the 2 years, we have them go and work in government and influencing policy and education. We have a lot of alumni who are now in leadership positions, and they're actually heading up the maths department in their school. So they started as the teacher for 2 years and now they're in charge of that entire maths faculty. We have our chief of staff at Teach for Australia. She's actually a maths alumni of the program and now works within our organisation, and she's doing something completely different, but still within that educational inequity background and influencing where she can. We also have 2 alumni who actually created the organisation Maths Pathway, which is a system that they use in schools. It's a model for teachers in classrooms that focuses more on growth rather than attainment. of grades, and they actually just sold that company for $12 million. So that's 2 alumni of the LDP that have gone through and created that. We've got them working in Questacon down in Canberra and working in the educator program down there. So our alumni are kind of spread across all aspects. And then we have ones that continue to stay in the classroom. One in particular that comes to mind is up in Alice Springs in the Northern Territory, and she's now in her 5th year on the program, and she moved her maths class from a C average to a B average within the first year, and she loves the environment and what she's teaching them, but what they are teaching her. So it just depends but yeah, there's plenty of opportunities available, and I think as well, leaning into that, yes you need the skills, and yes you need the qualification, but our particular selection process is purely competency based. We're looking at your humility, respect and empathy, your resilience and planning and organization and problem solving, and those are the things that are going to support you through any role that you do, not just our program, any of these fellow organizations on the call. But yeah, I can go into those a little bit later. Yeah.
That's really good, Sarah. I'm also getting a sense that it's really important for students to take a step back and introspect and identify their own values before they go out and try and see what organization they'd be a good fit for. And I think, that example you quoted for the person working at Alice Springs has probably found that fit for herself. So that's really good. Sophie, you're not new to employability. You've got extensive experience in the tertiary sector as well. Have you noticed any significant skills gap between what students have or are graduating with and what the industry expects, particularly in IT, computer science, and maths related disciplines, and from your role at FDM Group? And I will throw in another question over here from Mohammed around international students. If you have any insights on that, Sophie, and the eligibility criteria for them in the sector, that'd be great.
Yeah, not a problem. So as I introduced FDM, and the reason we exist is because there's a tech skills shortage. So I'm speaking to the right crowd. You guys have got the technical skills that every company under the sun is needing. But then probably to talk about the soft skills, and that seems to be the theme that's evolving through this whole session. The things that I noticed that differentiate people in the recruitment process and make it really easy to hire people are people that show confidence and initiative. And these are things that are accessible to everybody. It takes a bit of practice, takes a bit of exploration, but if you can not self-exclude yourself from opportunities, you need to remember that getting your next job is a growth opportunity. So you're not meant to meet and know and have experience in everything that's listed on the application and in the role. It's about knowing that you have the confidence and you have the potential to learn those skills, and you've got some potentially foundation things that lend themselves to showing that you have the aptitude to learn those skills. So have a bit of confidence in yourself, a little bit of projection going on from me, because I probably self-excluded myself when I was your age from things that I could have learned. And the difference between a person who shows that confidence and a person who doesn't can sometimes shine through a recruitment process. And then there's the people that show initiative. So the Mels of this world who get excited and go exploring. Because if you go exploring and you go try things out and you go learn things, even if you find them hard, even if you don't understand it after 5 times watching the video, the difference is Mel is going to have some stories to tell. Mel is going to know herself a bit better. And is going to have some stories to tell at interview, is going to have some stories to tell in cover letter, and is going to speak with real authenticity and experience when it comes to that time, because she's going to be going for a role that she knows is going to be a good fit for her. So confidence in yourself and putting yourself out for roles where they might be a stretch, and being excited about that stretch, and showing initiative, exploring, getting out there, doing things, trying out new things, and then learning into what you enjoy. I think I see a difference in the recruitment process and the people that get through, people that show those two things. International students, it's hard, guys. It's hard because it's easier to hire permanent residents and citizens into these programs. The advice that I always gave international students when I worked for universities and when I worked with a lot of different organizations is, again, have a look at small to medium size enterprises. If you're finding it hard getting into large structured programs, which the reason why those structured programs have that need for Australian citizenship or permanent residency is because they're succession planning and they want to build a pipeline that they know is going to stay in the country, guaranteed, because it's a big investment for those companies. But small to medium enterprises need to grow and they need to get skills on board, and they need people who have fresh energy, who are prepared to put in the hard yards and do every boring activity to exciting activity, and there's a more breadth, there's a wider breadth of skills that you can get across if you're working for a smaller company. So for international students, I recommend checking out startups. I recommend checking out local businesses and seeing if there's part-time opportunities or a way to involve it in your course if you've got a work integrated learning course.
Have a growth mindset. That's a really, really great point, Sophie. And also for international students, I think I can very quickly speak to that as well. I was an international student in Australia. The route going through small, medium enterprises is your best option. It is the quickest option. It is also a place where you get to get your foot in the door. And then from there, you work out your pathways. So don't give up. Sailen, I want to bring you in now, please. If you've got a qualification in computer science and maths from University of London. How similar or different has your career been in relation to your studies? And I also want to add in another question over here from Suketu around grades and the importance of grades in acquiring or landing yourself a role. If you could touch on that from your perspective, Sailen.
So, as I said, I left university 30 years ago. So where I started and where I am are different universes, to be honest. And so when I first started my career, I went into the electricity generation company in the UK called National Grid. And I started doing modeling, which is mathematics. And so I was doing grid modeling. But the biggest thing I found is that as you go through your career, your interests change, your focus changes. And if you find a good mentor in your life, your mentor influences, and this is one thing I think is influenced my career more than anything else, is that I've had 3 or 4 mentors in my career who are able to see what my potential is. And so they've guided me through my career. So where I was 30 years ago doing mathematical modeling with, Fortran and C, and where I am now managing customer expectations, is something that my mentors saw years ago was really my true purpose in life. So I think find a good mentor and you'll find that where you are is a good starting point. Be fluid about it, take the opportunities, and if something interests you, really, then go for it, because at the end of the day, if you enjoy something, then you'll do well at it. So I think my path has diverged quite dramatically, but I think the thing that stuck me right through, I think everybody's sort of pretty much mentioned it, is the soft skills part of it. Critical thinking, from a science and scientific background, critical thinking and scientific method have never left me. And so you may not be doing the nuts and bolts of the mathematics that you started off with, but what you will do is you'll continue using the methods and the skills that you learn onto how to solve problems, basically. And as I said, the mentors in your life and the influences in your life will lead you into the direction that you'll finally end up in. So I think that's important. In terms of grade, that's an interesting question. So I walked out with a first, and I was born in an era where if you got first, your doors were open in London. Basically, you got merchant banks and IT companies, everybody grabbing. But to be perfectly honest, at the end of the day, it's about how your attitude is and how your aptitude is at the end of the day. And we've seen many examples in the world where people, you hear about the anecdotes of the Einsteins of the world and, the Zuckerbergs of the world and etc. So it's not about the grades. The grades prove that you have a level aptitude, but the passion is what drives you through. And I think so. For me, as I said, get the best grades you can, because it opens a door. But there's many other, there's more than doors. There's windows and there's cracks that you can work through, and find good mentors in your life, basically, that will lead you in the right direction, and they can see your potential.
We have a career-ready industry mentoring program at La Trobe University. The intake just started the 1st of August, but if you are interested, search students for the career-ready industry mentoring program. You are matched with someone from your area of study. We do our best to match you. So that's certainly something that you might want to look into. And for our panelists as well, if you're interested in becoming mentors, we'll send you links for that. Simon, can I bring you into this conversation? Now, look, I wanted to ask you about what you sort of like and dislike about your role, and what you do to sort of mitigate the aspects that you don't like within your role. I also want to add this particular question over here in the chat from Harshil to that question, if it's okay. He's saying that he just wanted to ask on the remote opportunities for students, as he's currently in his final year, but has to move home to Kenya for 3 months due to family emergency. And due to the borders being closed, he's probably going to be stuck there. So is there any other area perhaps that one can upskill in the meantime, if remote internships are a challenging step? So if you can't get a remote internship, what other areas are there in IT that you'd recommend he upskill in?
Okay, so maybe we'll tackle this one first. So I think, Arshil, maybe have yourself your own project. I think the best way to learn, I found, and based on what I've heard the panel say, to show that you're willing to learn, have your own real life problem, not some esoteric problem from somewhere, but that you're trying to solve, and learn the skills to do it. So you're going to have to learn to do a bit of coding, whether it's Python, Java, whatever you're trying to do. You may have to use Raspberry Pi for it, like all these things, and put them all together. And just one little step at a time every day, just one step every day. Just today I'm going to do this, and it may take you 3 days to do it, it may take you 2 hours. But have little goals like that, little incremental goals. And by the time you've done a month of work on your project, you've done 30 steps, and you look at what you would have learned in 1 month as opposed to when you started. So yeah, don't be afraid. And I find the best way to learn is have a real use case that you're trying to solve for yourself, whatever it is, and go after it. And there's plenty of resources on the web to people that have run into similar issues and how they've addressed it, so you can build from that. From what I dislike about your role, so actually I've only recently joined Red Hat, so it's only been a year, so there's nothing really that I dislike with my current role. But if you check on my LinkedIn profile, I stayed for a lot longer into a previous company, which I absolutely hated. So the way to deal with something that you dislike, if you dislike it a lot, then a success, you change job if you can. Otherwise, if it's something you have more joy in the activities you do, and some of the, some things that are not so joyful, then you just learn to deal with it and focus on the thing that you enjoy. But, there's no, same as school, right? Or at uni, you have to study for exams. Maybe you don't enjoy the exams, but that's just part of it. So just roll with the flow, enjoy the days when you don't have the exams, and on the exams, just do your best. And that's how I deal with it. So if it becomes out of control, if it's more things that I dislike in my role than things that I like, I'll try and look for another job. Not everyone can do that, but I mean, that's what I've done, basically moving countries, moving companies. But yeah, until you find, I think that's why the culture is important. So the culture of the company I work in is a lot closer to the way I want to work, for example. So it's a lot easier to deal with the inconveniences of the job on certain things that you don't like, maybe, as opposed to a company where you actually don't have the same type of culture as the company you work for. It's a lot more difficult to take joy in the work you do. Does that make sense? Or
yeah, no, absolutely. And I think there's a key point you made there around, and I also want students to realize is that it's quite possible that you won't like certain aspects of a particular role when you get out there. So it's not all rosy petals out there. There might be days when you're not feeling good, or there might be roles that you think are a certain type, but then you find out that it's different. So that's something that I wanted to highlight from your experience, Simon. So thanks for touching on that. Steve, we've talked about a lot of soft skills today. We've talked about having a positive attitude, a growth mindset, the right attitude as well. what about networking? How important is networking? And do you have any practical tips around how students can increase their professional networks?
Yes, absolutely. Very, very important. Networking on many levels, of course. Networking within your immediate university social set, of course. Networking amongst as many other organisations as you possibly can. But I guess once you're in a particular role, it's also about networking across a particular client within the organisation itself to ensure that you're across as many people within that organisation as possible. It's important to, I think, as somebody said before, Oracle is a 100,000 odd person organisation. There's obviously no way you'll get across every single person in that place, but it's really important to know within your organisation who's who in your immediate world, so that you can understand the best pathway to address any particular issues that you're having, to help solve any particular pain points or problems. Absolutely. So too often people just stick within their immediate environment. But I think it's important once you obtain your first role that you understand who else within the organisation plays an influencing role in some of the things that you will ultimately deliver. And it's important that you reach out to them and get to know them. So some of the tips that I've always done is, I've always in almost every meeting that I've sat in over the years, whoever I'm specifically meeting with, I always try and ask them a little bit about what they do, a little bit about what their interactions are like within their particular organisation or their particular department, if it's an internal person. And I always try and get at least one other name before I leave that meeting. That one other name could be Rana's boss, it could be Sarah's colleague, it could be a whole raft of different people. And if I just get that one name and then obviously leverage your socials to connect with those people, LinkedIn is obviously the most obvious one. And really just start to reach out and build those networks. And then, as we all know, once you start to make those connections, that they start to domino into other possible people. So I think those sorts of very basic habits are good habits to have. So whenever you're meeting somebody, always try and at least get an introduction to someone else. And the classic tip that I've used is I've always asked, do you mind extending an invitation or connecting me with Rana or whoever it might be? So they're the sorts of things that you have to get into that regular disciplined habit of doing. And in time, you'll see your networks really growing. And
your networks might come in really handy if you don't like the job that you're in and want to go
That's right.
one as well. So you might want to do that
exactly
as much
right. Yes.
Steve, I'll get your insight really quickly into this, please. Mel has just asked, how much of a barrier does COVID pose to networking in the tech industry, like attending conferences and things like that?
Look, really, no barrier at all. I think if there's one industry that's done really well out of COVID is the tech industry. If there's one thing that working from home has taught us, and I think this probably goes to one of the previous questions that I think it's Harshal. No matter where you are in the world, you can, if you've got a computer and internet connection, you can log in and you can start working. And I think that's one thing that COVID has demonstrated to every organisation. And I reckon it's really opened up employment borders very much so for a lot of organisations. And so networking in the tech industry, there couldn't be more opportunities. So someone talked before about hackathons. There's lots of networking groups within LinkedIn and other forums. Meetups are still going on in a lot of areas. And so, there really is no shortage of viable alternatives for you to continue your networking in this particular space. Absolutely.
Fantastic. Great tip. Look, I think from what I'm hearing, the only limiting factor might be your attitude towards the online networking. I think if you shape that to a correct way, then you might be on your way. So, Sarah, in terms of recruitment, is there anything that could make students stand out for the wrong reasons in the job application process?
Good question. I've got kind of two areas, and the first one, and I know this has been spoken about a lot, and I bring this up a lot in the presentations I do with TFA, but I think being vision and value aligned is so important, and understanding what your values are and do they align with the values of the organization that you are applying to, and the vision, is it something that you believe in? I think they're very separate. And I definitely see so many applications come through where they've got no idea who Teach for Australia is, just to do a specific example. And it's so clear to us because the entire application form is very vision and mission aligned. So doing research on what you're applying for, and I was so guilty of this when I left university. I just applied to any job that I could find without actually doing any research into the organization. So it's very easy to do, but taking the time, and as Sophie said, being persistent. You may go through so many organizations only to find out that it's not something that you align with, and that's absolutely fine, but put in the research and put in the work to do that. And the other one is communication, and I think there's a lot that falls into communication, but some particular ones that I always bring up is not showing up to phone calls booked or interviews booked or anything like that without any form of communication. It's disrespectful for your time. It's disrespectful for the employer's time. Not replying to emails is another one. And email etiquette, saying hello, signing off your email. This sounds so basic, but it really just kind of, if you open an email that's nothing, that doesn't say hi or anything, it puts a sour taste in the mouth. So basic communication there. I'm going to call out Mel again, Jeffries, because you're just like a star for us at the moment, but not taking advantage of the events that are available to you. So this event, we run application workshops, we run information sessions and alumni Q&As, and I have definitely seen so many of our candidates who have come to all of those events, and I run the event, so I see them all the time, and they ask the questions and then they go through and be successful because they've put the work in to do the research. So I think going to as many events as you can is really important. And also just not taking advantage of the people that are there to help you. So like myself and Sailen and Sophie and Steve, like we all have roles to, I guess, to talk to you, and we want to talk to you. And if we're putting ourselves out there, come back to us. And if you're not interested either, tell us. I think that's another thing, is the ghosting, if you will. So they're probably my two that I would say are the most obvious, but so basic.
Great. So communicate what you need or don't need. Is the bottom line. Thank you so much, Sarah. Sophie, I want to bring you in for this particular question that James has put in the chat. I think a lot of our students have resonated with that, and they've said, yep, I have the same problem. I do have to read the question out for the recording. James has written, I'm not sure if this applies to any of you. I think it applies to a lot, but I have an issue with imposter syndrome and being quite self-critical. Do you have any tips on how to counteract or mitigate the instinct to downplay your own skills and experience?
I saw this question pop up in the chat function, and I was like chomping at the bit to answer it. So thank you so much for passing it to me. I just want to say that for a start, you're in the majority. That's not a minority problem. That's a majority problem. So we are our own worst critics. And a lot of us, when we start our careers, have this imposter syndrome. And I lecture my recruitment team on this all the time, because they're all in their early 20s, and they constantly apologize for things. And they say things like, well, I haven't got much experience, but my idea is. And I'm like, and I stop them and I say, what value did that first part of the sentence offer what you had to say? Absolutely nothing. In fact, it undermines what you have to say. Every time they say, you know, I don't know much, or I don't have much experience, or this is probably a stupid idea, but I just want you to question how much value that is offering, because what it's doing is it's already discrediting you to the audience that you're speaking to. And they're already losing faith before they've even heard your idea. And so, James, I want to say that you are demonstrating the first step that I would recommend. And that is simply being aware. You know, that cliche, you know, the first step in problem solving is acknowledging that you have a problem. If you can hear yourself using these phrases, or if you can feel the feeling coming up, and the awareness that you have imposter syndrome, the awareness that you do downplay yourself, is the first step. And then I want you to question it every single time. And if you catch yourself saying, I don't have much experience, but, or it's probably a terrible idea, but just see if you can cut it out of your language. And if you say it and if you feel it, know that you're in the majority, but your experience, your perspective, your fresh set of eyes, your skill set is needed. That's why we have jobs. That's why we're interviewing you. That's why we want you to work for us. You have value. There's actually no point in downplaying it. You're actually not helping yourself and you're not helping the person that you're speaking to. So awareness is actually the first step. So kudos to everybody on the call. If you're aware that you downplay yourself and you undermine yourself sometimes and you feel like you're being an imposter, awareness is the first thing. Now you need to question that, and you need to question, does it come up in your language? Does it come up in the way that you apply for things? Does it come up in excluding yourself from opportunities? And have a look at those things and then question, okay, is that real, or is it something that I can still push forward and do? Because that they say, fake it until you make it. I'm not entirely on board with that, but I'm more on board with just do it. I'm more of a Nike person rather than a fake it. So I'm a fan of just doing it. And you'll learn and you'll get things wrong and you'll break things and you'll make mistakes. And that's how you get better and that's how you experience life. But just do it. Be aware of the fear. It's okay. I can tell you the majority of us on the call, we all have it.
Thank you, Sophie. Some really good insights there. James, I hope, and the other students as well, I hope that was valuable. So I want to ask this particular question to Simon and Steve, and then I want to come in to Sailen with our COVID question. So please bear with me 1 second. I am aware of time as well. Simon, Steve, this particular question from Mel is also quite important. Would having a poor digital footprint be something that deters employers, especially in tech? Any thoughts on that? And Simon, thank you.
Okay, so by digital footprint, do you mean like Instagram, Facebook, all those type of apps, basically, whether you should have a presence on all of those environments? Is that I don't. Is that what's meant by that?
Yeah, like your whole image, your brand, your reputation, like everything you present yourself online. So yeah, your image.
So it depends what you're after. For example, I can only speak for myself. I have very limited digital footprint, right? I just have LinkedIn, which is for professional stuff. I don't, and all the things I put online are related to work and technology and things like that. So you can write blogs and so forth. I think if you have something that's relevant to the industry you're working in, why not? I think if you have a creative side and some, absolutely you can put that, but I don't think you have to expose your whole life in the digital world to have a credibility within the IT industry, right? But if you have things that are specifically relevant to what you're trying to do in the industry, absolutely put them online, yeah. But you don't have to have like to be a blogger or writing, publishing tweets and stuff like that all the time to have a successful career in there.
Yeah, no, I'd probably agree with what Simon's saying, Mel. The only other thing I'd probably add to that is be as well read as you can. Be up to date with what's happening in the industry. I mean, you don't have to deep dive into lots of blogs. You can see them on the front page of most magazines or online newspapers and so on. And so when you do front up for that interview, you could at least be across, what may be a particular issue in the industry. So the more you're well digitally read is more important than your digital footprint per se.
Great. Thank you for.
And it may change, right, with generations. Like I can tell you, I'm like for my mid-40s. The way I look at work and work ethics may be different from when you guys are going to enter the work market. They're going to be a bit of a generational shift, right, as well for those type of things. So things may evolve. Maybe you'll be required to have a massive digital footprint to be successful in the industry from now on. But at the moment, I don't think that's the case.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Probably from a recruitment perspective, I've heard that and there are different practices. There is no norm around this, but will recruiters potentially go and look for potential candidates' Facebook profile to see if there are any?
100%. 100%. Be careful. So if you put like silly stuff, going out and getting drunk the night before your interview, you just put it after the interview, but actually don't put it on social media. But 100%, yeah. So, okay, just to be on the safe side, students, best to not put anything inappropriate out there, because it is very easy to access people's profiles. Sailen, I want to get to this topic around COVID and how it has impacted your work, and more importantly, what opportunities has it
presented Oracle, and how can our students stay up to date with the latest tech trends at Oracle?
So I'm going to skew this question slightly. So there's two layers to this answer. Operationally, to be honest, absolutely no impact at all. My teams are all remote. And to be honest, I don't think except for the Melbourne crew, I haven't actually met most of my 27 team members because they don't live in this country. So operationally, it actually makes no difference. The thing I think me and a lot of people are missing is the face-to-face. So we talked about language and we talked about communication, but body language is so huge in our industry that when you walk into a boardroom or you walk into a meeting, you're reading people's faces, you're reading people's body language, and you glean so much of what they're not saying out of that conversation. And that is something that you cannot get on Zoom, or it's very difficult to get on Zoom. The other side of it, I think, that needs to be covered is the emotional level. The mental health challenge in this has been immense. So on my one-to-ones, I watch the mental health telltales of the people I'm speaking with, and you start to see people deteriorate, or you start to see people suffer. And so as a manager, that's one thing that has changed quite a lot. And I had to do that anyway because my team was remote, but the whole level of impact that it's had on individuals worldwide is immense, and you have to watch that. And the other interesting side of this that I've seen is when I'm dealing with customers. So I'm actually dealing with the fallout of mental health challenges with a customer. So when you're dealing with projects and expectations and things, you're starting to deal with some of the challenges that the customers are going through from a mental health point of view. And I actually started counseling a customer representative, basically, because they were suffering, and the call turned into more of a personal counseling session than it actually did in the customer session. So that's changed the method of working that we're doing. And on a positive side, to be perfectly honest, tech companies like Oracle, we're booming, and not booming because something dramatically has changed in the market. But, as Steve says, I think people have suddenly realized that the mode of working that, bums on seats sitting in an office is no longer a valid model. And so if you take Oracle, for example, we're shutting buildings down because we do not need offices anymore. And so, from a financial sense, we're booming because we don't need offices. 190 offices or 300 offices will go down over time. But, as I said to you before, we host Zoom. So as Zoom grows, we grow, basically. So that's the other side of it. But, that's sort of on a commercial side. I think the big win for us is that Oracle, 130,000 employees, can be a very rigid organization, very draconian in its methods, its processes. And one thing I've noticed with the tech giants of the Oracles and the Facebooks and the Googles is that they've adapted to this phenomenon so quickly. And to be honest, they've adapted quickly to COVID, and the support and empathy that they're actually providing staff is unbelievable. I'm absolutely shocked how quickly they've adapted, and the empathy that they've provided all the staff around the world, and the support that they've provided. And within 18 months, I don't recognize Oracle. From what it was to what it's become through this, and it's spawned a new culture and this new vitality within the company. So we've got the financial benefits, and we're booming, and there's lots of work and lots of people going to cloud and all this kind of stuff. But I think from a cultural point of view, Oracle, for me, has really gone leaps and bounds in terms of how it's dealing with what's happened, how it's dealing with its staff, and how it's supporting its staff worldwide with sort of the crisis that we're facing, really. So, there's a good and a bad to all of this, but I think the positive is that, if sort of leviathans like Oracle can change their spots, which they've started to do, I see hope in the world and a bit of humanity in the world, to be honest.
It's good to know that there are organizations out there taking seriously considering their employees' mental health as well during these lockdowns and difficult times that we're facing. Thanks for sharing that, Sailen. I'm very mindful of time. We literally have 2 minutes before the session is supposed to end. Panelists, if you have another appointment to get to, please feel free to leave the meeting. I will thank you in advance for your time. I want to get finally, want to address Saad's question because I think it's important. Sophie, I'm going to give you this tough task of addressing it potentially in a minute. But Saad, to give you some additional resources in addition to what Sophie is going to mention, do access our career services as well around how to perform during your interview and put in a strong application. So the question, Sophie, is any interview tips for a new IT graduate? Also, how do I think if we could focus on how do I close an interview with a lasting impression?
How do I close an interview with a lasting impression? I always recommend to tailor your approach to whatever. So tailor your CV, tailor your phone interview, tailor your answers to your interview to the organization. And so how you leave a lasting impression is by demonstrating that you've done your research. So you know the program that you're applying for, you know the company that you're applying for, and you know yourself really well. Now, unfortunately, this actually takes a lot of work and it's not something that you can do really, really quickly. It's not something you can go, oh, I'll just add that sentence in. Because it takes, going back to advice I think we said earlier, you need to know your values, you need to have explored things, you need to be well read. I'm going to pick off all the advice that's been given across the panel. You need to do all of this hard work first so that you know what your strengths are, you know what energizes you, you know what you're good at, you know yourself and you know what you're looking for. And then if you align it to the company that you're applying for, because you've done your research on the company and you know what they do and you know what they've been in the media and you know that the products that they deliver and you know their success rates and you know their growth and you know the people because you've done your research. Then when you wrap up and leave a lasting impression and they say, do you have any questions for us? You pull it out. If they haven't given you a question where you've been able to demonstrate this, you pull it out and you say, well, based on my values, X, Y, and Z, and based on your growth and where you want to take your business, ABC, I want to hear your insights. What's the next step for LMNOP? So how you leave a lasting impression is by telling them, the company, you know yourself, you know what you want, and you've already done the hard work for them because you can see that you align with where they're going and what they deliver. So know the company really, really well that you're applying for. The biggest turnoff for a company is interviewing someone who doesn't know what the program is and isn't exactly sure what the company does, and then doesn't know how they might align with it. So unfortunately, it's a bit of work, but I promise you, if you do the work now, it will serve you throughout your career because it'll only grow. So leaving a lasting impression is asking really good questions at the end of your interview that demonstrate you know yourself and know the company.
Thank you very much, Sophie. I think that's really well put. Again, I also want to quickly highlight what James has put in there is that there are a lot of recruitment tools out there that scrape social media automatically. So watch out if you have any publicly facing profiles. Very quickly, I want to wrap up by sort of highlighting some of the key points that I think I'll do justice to what our panelists have said. Is have the right attitude, have the propensity to learn, have the confidence, take the initiative, don't self-exclude yourself from opportunities, get a mentor, start a side project as soon as possible if internships are really difficult to secure, align your vision and value with the organization that you're getting into, don't undermine yourself, take care of yourself, and just do it. Just do it is the magic word, students. I feel like we've had some really brilliant insights. Thank you very much, Sailen, Sophie, Simon, Steve, and Sarah, who's left us now, and all our students as well for taking the time to join us and listen in. I hope you have a wonderful week. Stay safe out there. Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sophie.